It's a culture wars. Well, one of the most sinister things I've seen in the last decade or two, apart from identity politics and global warming, let me not go through the list, I get really depressed, has been the cancel culture. You know, this idea, don't argue with people, don't test your ideas in debate, just shut them down, sack them, silence them. I mean, people trying to get this show off the air right now. Don't even try to prove people wrong. Now, this is so bad. You take perhaps America's most famous newspaper, the New York Times. It's now been so hijacked by leftists from this culture of cancelling that it sacked its opinion editor for daring to publish a piece by someone who argued that the military should be called in if Black Lives Matter rioters were too violent. A perfectly legitimate point of view, got the editor sacked. Yesterday, another of its opinion editors resigned in protest at the New York Times closing down debate, like you actually see now in many newspapers of the left, including here. And she accused staff of abusing colleagues like her who didn't toe the line of the far left. Now, Barry Weiss is no conservative. She hates Donald Trump, etc., but she says she was bullied for being a centrist, or at least for giving space to non-leftists. And she said Twitter has become the newspaper's ultimate editor. Stories are chosen and told in such a way to satisfy the narrowest of audiences, the Twitter audience. And op-eds that would have easily been published just 2 years ago, would now get an editor or a writer in serious trouble, if not fired. Read the whole thing on my blog. It's just so powerful, an indictment. Joining me is Rowan Dean, author, columnist and host of Outsiders on Sunday at 9 a.m. And I can't stress enough, you should watch it, it's going great guns. Now, Rowan, Barry Weiss's letter of resignation is brilliant. As I said, people should read it. Why should we care, though, about the resignation in New York of this woman?
Well, we should care and we should be scared, because this is the next, a very dangerous and the next step in the kind of Marxist, communist-style, Stalinist approach that the left is seeing, this kind of censoring of our society, silencing free speech, stopping people speaking. Now, the reason this is so dangerous is we've had for several years now, and we've talked about it a lot on this show, as part of the culture wars, we've had the political correctness debate. So political correctness says, oh, you shouldn't really say that, that's not the right way to say it, or you should frame the argument like this. But this has gone to the next stage, this cancel culture, Andrew, and what it's doing is it's disappearing people. So it's just making them poof, they're gone. They're gone from the public debate. They're gone from whatever platform they may have had, whether it be writing in a newspaper, whether it be speaking at a university, whether it be just engaging in the workplace with putting forward points of views. And the danger here is it's almost like a second boycott. They're cancelling the person who put another person's opinion into the paper. So this is, they're not saying to the person who, the person whose opinion they didn't like, they're gone, but they're now going after the person who put that person into their role or gave them the opportunity to speak. This is communism, Stalinism writ large. What is really telling about this, Andrew, is that Barry Weiss says very clearly that she was employed after the 2016 election because, for the same reason we discussed it here on Sky, places like the US, the Useless Confusion Centre, none of them picked that Trump would win. For the same reason, the ABC, nobody picked that Trump would win. For the same reason, the New York Times had a little moment where they went, oh, hang on, we didn't understand what was happening in our own backyard. We never thought Trump would win. So they took the sensible decision of bringing in an opinions editor to go out there and bring in writers to the New York Times who could put that alternative point of view, so that at least readers of the newspaper would then be able to go, oh, well, this is what they're thinking in the Midwest, or this is what they're thinking down in Texas, then I'm better informed. That she has stood down and said she cannot even do her job, Andrew, because of the internal victimisation, bullying, aggression, and
Incredible.
The way her pieces are changed. This is really sinister. We should be very scared about this cancel culture.
Yeah, and this is from, New York Times is sort of like one of the world's most famous newspapers of the left. and be the first to rail about microaggressions,
Yes.
workplace bullying, victimising a woman, Me Too, all that kind of stuff. And here is a woman whose life has been made intolerable. And I read the Twitter feed about her departure, and it's all good, she's gone, fantastic. You know, it's just unbelievable. Now, Ricky Gervais is basically of the left, although he does think for himself, give him full credit. Brilliant satirist, you know, creator of The Office and all that kind of stuff. He has had enough of this cancel culture too, as most people of intelligence now do. Here he is this week.
There's this new weird sort of fascism of people thinking they know what you can say and what you can't. But the two catastrophic problems with the term hate speech is, one, what constitutes hate speech? Everyone disagrees. There is no consensus on what hate speech is, right? Yeah. And two, who decides? What's never should be in place is that you mustn't say something that someone somewhere might find offensive, because someone somewhere will find everything offensive. And as I've said so many times, just because you're offended, it doesn't mean you're right. And what's happened recently is I'm offended has replaced an argument.
Now, Gervais is so right, isn't he, Rowan? I mean, we've got the cancel culture, which to me seems a weapon of people who are too stupid, too lazy, or too much the bully to simply have an argument. All they say is, I'm offended, you're wrong.
Well, Andrew, historically it was the role of the jester, the court jester, or so-called the fool, who was the only person who was allowed to speak directly into the ear of the king and tell them what was, or queen, what was really going on. So dressing up a very strong, powerful political opinion in jokes or in music or whatever way, using satire, was the way the court jester, the fool, was allowed to let the king know what was going on without losing his head. Anyone else would lose their head. Ricky Gervais and increasingly more traditional comedians like Gervais, John Cleese and others of that ilk are realising they have to speak the truth about what is going on in the world now. Comedians traditionally speak against authority. They're the ones who say, well, actually, you know, the almighty authority's up there doing whatever. Here's a human foible. Let's joke about that. They are now realising that it's so changed our society now that the forces of oppression are no longer the conservative establishment of the 1950s and 60s. The forces of oppression now are the strong forces of the woke left. They are the ones who are crushing individual freedoms under their feet, grinding people, using people's lives, destroying their lives in the workplace, destroying their lives in conversations, shaming, humiliating people. This is the modern left, as authoritarian, as disgusting, as powerful as the Stasi in East Germany, as Mao's Cultural Revolution. This is what the left have become in our countries in the West, and as people like Gervais, the traditional fool, the traditional kind of court jester, who has now realised this is the new truth that has to be exposed. And good on you.
I think it's an interesting point you make, that it's the comedians like, you know, John Cleese as well, that seem to have seen this coming first. Chris Lilly here in this country too. He hasn't said much, but he has revolted by putting up clips that have been banned of his. Last week, though, we did have 150 or so writers and intellectuals, you know, serious people, Margaret Atwood, J.K. Rowling, Salman Rushdie, people like that, mostly of the left, mostly from the US and Britain, also attacked the cancel culture too. I mean, I think the left has tolerated it because these people have been the stormtroopers of the left. They think, well, if they're going for the right people, I don't need to intervene. I haven't seen the left here, though, take this seriously enough. Now, why would that be?
Well, because they're playing the same game. Matt Canavan on Outsiders a couple of weeks ago brilliantly compared what is going on now with the French Revolution, the Jacobins, Robespierre, and so on. And what happens in these situations, Andrew, is those who are the fighters on the left fighting for whatever it might be, they then become the victims because they're not radical enough. Once you head down this path of moral purity, of political and moral purity, which is what the left and cancel culture is all about, there is only one point of view. There is only one opinion. There is only one. You must bend your knee to Black Lives Matter.
That's so correct.
That is political extremism of the sort that starts feeding on itself. Because what next? You've got to bend two knees, then you probably have to chop your legs off and crawl along the ground. And then, exactly.
I should correct myself. Peter Baldwin in The Australian wrote a fantastic
Absolutely
former
superb
Labor
on
Minister.
it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Rowan Dean, thank you so much indeed for your time.